Hi guys, my name's Jack Nagle and I've been in recovery for over 10 years now and completely transformed my life out of addictive patterns. And with Real Drug Talk and our treatment company called Connection-Based Living, I've helped hundreds of other people completely change their life as well. Like Haley, who's over 6 years in recovery. You can check her story out on our YouTube channel. And James, who's over 2 years in recovery now, you can also check his story out on our YouTube channel. Because of the mad times that we live in, we have put together a book. It's called The 11 Definitive Steps to Transform Your Life Out of Addictive Patterns Without Having to Go to Rehab. You can find it by scrolling down in the description that I'm pointing at here. If you just scroll down and click that link, it'll take you to the special offer on the book. It's super cheap. And also you get some free bonuses along with it as well. So if you're looking to transform out of addictive patterns and get some change and, have things to be different and joyful and have some freedom in your life, I'd highly recommend taking a look at this book. It could be the most important thing you read in 2021 and 2022 moving forward. Into the video, guys. Peace.
So from someone that's on the front line of the data, what would need to be changed in your opinion, or fixed or amended just to help it improve even more? And actually, I guess firstly, would you say that what we do at the moment with data is awesome, like on a scale of 1 to 10? And what do we need to improve to make it better?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good question.
Just a quick interruption to let you guys know that we've created a complete new book called The 11 Definitive Steps to Get Recovery Without Going to Rehab. And for a short time only, we've got a super special deal on it where you can get the book for a heavily discounted price, plus some free bonuses, the book audio recorded, and a free self-care planner that I've used to help me start my day and finish my day in a really nice and freeing fashion. So if that's of interest to you and you're looking for some answers on how to get some transformation out of addiction without having to lock yourself away in rehab for ages, maybe you might want to check out the book. Search for it in the description below. Back to the video. Peace.
It's not awesome, but our data sets are, compared to the rest of the world, pretty good.
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of data collected and it's collected quite rigorously.
Yeah.
And if we, compared to some other countries like New Zealand, doesn't have a drug survey that's regular. I think the last data about the population level of drug use was, I don't know, something like 10 years ago.
Oh, that's amazing. We're beating them at something.
Yeah. So, and there's lots of other countries that don't have ours is really regular every 4 years. And so we can see trends over time. And we have a lot of different data sets. I think the thing that's missing is putting all those data sets together into a story.
Yep.
That rarely happens. And it means that we could be making policy decisions in a bit of a vacuum.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. And I think that's, don't get me wrong, we can always be better. And I hate sort of saying this sometimes, but it's really true. Like, people have to remember as well, with whether it's drugs and alcohol, whether it's any healthcare system that we have in Australia, I wouldn't go out on a limb because I don't know and say that we're the best, but we have a pretty good, from what I've seen anyway, we have a pretty good healthcare system and a pretty good way of doing things. And it's just, even though to me it's frustrating and it feels like we're behind with a lot of stuff, we are, compared to the rest of the world, in front. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but yeah. And there is at least some kind of avenues for people to get help. So tell me, transitioning into that, your core business at the moment with 360 Edge is, as we were talking about at the start, service delivery improvement, workforce capacity building, things like that. How are we going with services? Because I know this is a big one for people. They feel like the system's fucked. And at times I feel like it's fucked, but is it really?
Yeah, it's really complex. I think that we've got we've got a workforce, for example, that, I think because, as you said at the beginning, the sector is not one that people generally kind of, kind of scrambling to be in. You have to really be committed in some way to the sector to be in it. And so that is a really good start, that we've got a bunch of people who really care about the sector and the people who they're serving. I think the main problem is the lack of funding for alcohol and drugs, because it's seen by governments as a kind of low priority in some ways. I think there's just not enough money going into it to pay people well enough to lift the
standard.
The standard of services. So we still have a lot of people without any professional qualifications, for example. And you would not see that in any other health field. And I think that you know very well, Jack, that the peer workforce is really important, but that's a separate issue to the professional workforce. If you look at the professional workforce in other health areas, they're more professionalised than that. And I think a lot of that's not a function of not caring about that. It's a function of not being able to pay people at the level of a professional. So if I were to work in mental health, for example, as a psychologist, or in a hospital as a psychologist, I would be paid a lot more than if I was in as an alcohol and drug worker, for example.
100%. And so you were saying at the start, you just don't understand how, people can't accept people for who they are, and some people have all the money and others don't, and all that stuff. One of the things I just cannot wrap my head around is just it's not like we're banging on, we just want money and funding for all these services and all this stuff. It's really just to pay people for
for the work that they do.
For the work that they do, and the extreme complexity and emotional volatility and all this stuff that they have to deal with on a daily basis, to walk home with like a good wage, which is probably when you're hitting into a manager of $80,000. It's just not. It's just not a lot.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know if you know what the averages are, but just off the top of my head, I think probably the averages in the alcohol and drug sector would be maybe like 65,000.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was around that, which is not a lot.
And when I say that, I mean full-time, working with people with incredibly complex needs and issues, not just with drugs and alcohol, in other areas of health, and with other like social issues and stuff. So I 100% agree with you, and that's not putting down anyone that's listening to this that is working in the drug and alcohol sector. I think it's amazing what people do, but it's incredibly hard for people to get paid with what they're worth and be incentivized to actually get better, do better, upskill themselves.
And we also lose a lot of good people out of the sector because they can 100%. Be paid better elsewhere. So we want to keep people who are specialists in alcohol and drugs because they're the ones that know about behaviour change and know about how to treat people. We don't want to lose them.
100%. He was my worker, and he was like one of the biggest reasons why I hung around in the service that I went to. I'm going to try and do another interview with him, because now that we've got the good equipment and the podcast and stuff, but he was saying to me that he was really disappointed, but he worked in the alcohol and drug space for like nearly 8 years, and he was awesome. Helped a lot of people, was really good, kind of progressed as much as he could through the ranks. But he just said to me, I left and started my own business, as like he's into motorbikes, and he's got like some kind of concreting business as well, because there was just like, even though everyone was really nice, loved what he was doing. There was just no opportunity for him to progress any further than he did.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
One thing that's really missing from the sector is professional pathways through the sector. So you kind of come in as a drug and alcohol worker, there might be a range of salary you can be on. You might kind of go up to that salary, but then to go to the next point, you need to take on a managerial job or do something else.
That's right.
There's fewer of those jobs. We need to be paying our good drug and alcohol workers more so that they have time for professional development, they have time for supervision, they can provide supervision and mentoring to other people, and we don't lose them from the sector.
100%. And it's not like you're just going to be throwing money away either. It's going to be a positive ROI because you're actually going to get better outcomes with service results as well.
Absolutely.
Because people are going to have more time, more specialized knowledge, which for everyone listening is exactly what you need, because that's the other crazy thing. If you think about drugs and alcohol, however you want to think about it, it's really a super specialized area of health. You know, you need to spend some time understanding how it all happens physiologically, emotionally. You know, there's lots of different components that make up a drug and alcohol issue. And so anyway, I feel like I'm banging on like a broken record.
But I agree. It's not like, not to kind of denigrate any other areas of health, but it's not like a broken arm where there's a protocol to fix it. We know what to do with a broken arm, different types of breaks. We know what the different ways to fix them. When you've got someone with a complex drug problem in front of you, they're all completely different. They've all come from a different background. They've got different pressures on them at the moment. They've had different pressures kind of in the development of the problem. And so you've got to be a pretty complex thinker to help them solve that problem that they've got.
So that's interesting. And that kind of helps transition into the next question that I had for you, which was, I don't know if you think it's a problem or something that we need to change, but one of the things that I've noticed as well is that, we don't have any protocols in terms of treating drug and alcohol use. Because for everyone listening, right, I guess there's two streams, and we only ever think about drug and alcohol use as addiction, which is one stream, which is like when you hit the pointy end. And then the other stream is just using drugs, and you might not actually have an addiction, but you're starting to have, maybe the person's starting to have issues with relationships or other problems, and they want to do something about it. And that's the first thing. People often don't understand the difference between that. But say if we're just talking addiction, right? There doesn't seem to be any protocols or standard markers to be measured against or hit that makes up, I guess you could call it like a clinical diagnosis or a agreed upon methodology of treating addiction. Is that true? That's what I think. Is that true, or is that not true?
That's a pretty good summary of where we're at. There are protocols, but not everybody uses the same protocol. Some of them, some of the strategies that are being used are well outside what we would consider to be best practice. They might have been, 30 or 40 or 50 years ago, the best that we had, but technology's kind of moved along a lot since then. And research has moved a lot since then. So getting the practitioners to use what's current best practice is probably one of the most difficult things to transition into. And we know that it takes about 10 years from evidence to come out to get it into practice. So that's way too long.
Wow. So what is that best practice at the moment? Like, what's considered best practice?
So there's a range of different types of treatment that are effective. The mainstays in counselling are motivational interviewing. That's got a good evidence base now. We know that it is effective in motivating people to change. Behavioural and cognitive therapies. So there's a whole range of those that are effective. So traditional kind of what people call CBT, but is really cognitive therapy. But also some of the newer things like dialectical behaviour therapy, which started out for people with personality disorders. We know that works.
What's that?
So it's like a combination of Zen Buddhism and cognitive behaviour therapy principles.
Awesome.
So a lot of kind of acceptance and distress tolerance is one of the really key strategies.
Is that what they call acceptance and commitment therapies, or is that something different?
Yeah, that's something different as well. And that's got, that's very new, much newer, and it's got a smaller evidence base, but there's some indication that that's also effective as well. So that's also based on behavioural and cognitive principles, actually on what's called radical behaviourism, so reinforcement.
Hope you enjoyed that video, and thanks for supporting the Real Drug Talk YouTube channel. Every video you watch, comment, subscribe to helps us to push through the YouTube algorithms and hopefully reach more people and help them out. Now listen, we're living in the most crazy times for the past 100 years, and because of that, as I mentioned throughout this video, we've created a brand new ebook that we have a special deal on called the 11 Definitive Steps to Transforming Out of Addictive Patterns Without Having to Go to Rehab. So if that sounds of interest to you, check out the links below. You can click on it and claim the super special deal that we have on it at the moment. Again, hope you and your family are doing okay, and would love for you to check out the rest of the videos on our channels and share them with anyone else that you think it might help. See you in the next video. Peace.